Now I'm off mute. It's this one. I'm still audible. Great. And I can still hear myself. Alright, Candace, if you can hear me, I'm ready. Alright, welcome everybody. My name is David. I'm a ranger at Katmai National Park and Preserve. Kind of doing an impromptu play-by-play today. Next 30 minutes or so I'll be on the bear cam here, the lower river cam. We're going to take a look at the bears that we're seeing. Kind of talk about maybe who we're looking at, if we can find out, and what they're up to. So if I stop talking for any point in time, don't worry, that doesn't necessarily mean that we've lost the feed, anything like that. I'm just kind of sitting here enjoying the show with you. Currently I'm on the satellite of the lower river platform. We do have two webcams set up on lower river. Right now the one that I'm standing closest to is not currently working, so I've set up shop here, give you the view that some of the longtime viewers are probably missing, and maybe a new view for folks who are tuning in this year. Four bears in view right now. Swimming on the right-hand side of the screen appears to be bear 503, nicknamed Cub Adult. That bear has really one of the most interesting life histories, I think, of any of the bears that we know of here in Brooks Camp. Back in 2015, 503 was abandoned as a cub. His mother, 402, went into estrus and was being courted by other males, so she kind of kicked 503 out of the house, so to speak. So he was on his own at a very young age. He really showed himself to be a real survivor, a real intuitive bear. He started hanging around another family group, bear 435, and her spring cub. And at a certain point, a 435 actually fully adopted 503. She began to nurse him like he was her own cub, and he was able to find a way to survive. He was raised by 435 for the next year or two, and last year was emancipated. So now he's on his own as a subadult. He's been a very successful subadult. We've seen him catching a lot of fish, avoiding other dominant bears, but also playing with bears that are not a threat to him, other subadult bears. It looks like he might end up doing that here. He's also been pretty dominant towards some bears that he's bigger than, more aggressive than. So he's really doing a good job of finding his place within the bear hierarchy, so to speak, at Brooks Camp. Probably noticed those kayakers that paddled by these bears. Brooks Camp is really the only developed area in Katmai National Park. Katmai is 4 million acres. It's a huge place. Most of it's designated wilderness. Brooks Camp is one of the very few areas that's not designated wilderness. We do have some developments here. The Brooks Lodge. We have Park Service housing, Park Service facilities. And so what we see because of that is we see a lot of people on the cams, we see a lot of bears on the cams. It's important to remember that the telephoto lens of all the cameras here that you're viewing, they really tend to distort distances. So I'd guess from my vantage point that those people were well beyond 50 yards of these bears. Though looking through the viewfinder of the camera, it certainly didn't look like that. So like I said before, this is kind of just an impromptu play-by-play. We try to do play-by-plays a few times a week. Now that we have all of our equipment up and running, which we were having some trouble with earlier this month, you can expect to see me and other rangers live on the cams a bit more often. We're going to be doing some more play-by-plays, more live chats. We'll again be doing that weekly Ask a Ranger series, just a little short snippets and quick facts about the ecosystem of Katmai, and the rest of the time that we're here, we'll be talking about the bears we're seeing, talk about things that relate directly to them. And so if you have any questions as you're viewing here, feel free to enter them into the text underneath the video feed on explore.org. I'll do my best to answer as many questions as I can. And so we're kind of doing this impromptu play-by-play because, for one thing, we're all set up here on the Lower River platform for our Ask a Ranger series, and then we just had a kind of a big influx of bears come into view. So I figure we get on and see what we can see together here. We've had a lot of bears using the Lower River this year. Water levels have been a little bit lower. We've had less snowfall in the mountains over the winter time. The lake froze over really well, dropping the water level, and it's taken a little longer than usual for the water level to rise. Less snow melt and starting point of a lower lake levels have contributed to that. And because of those lower lake levels, fishing's quite a bit easier here in the Lower River. The actual depth of the river itself, up towards the falls and along other areas, it's about the same as usual. But down here at the mouth, where it meets Neck Lake, much lower levels than we saw last year, and lower than average levels. So that's given the opportunity to less dominant bears, subadults like 503, and family groups like the one we're seeing here on the left. It's given them the opportunity to come out here and take advantage of good fishing opportunities, and also stay away from some of those more dominant bears that use the falls. It's also been fairly hectic down here, as the Lower River is kind of the area where people use quite a bit. People fishing, people traveling from the campsite over to the Brooks Falls viewing platform. And so as people travel through the area, we still want to be sure that we give bears as much space as possible. So we always want to maintain 50 yards from any bear that we see, as long as it's safely possible to do so. So we've seen a lot of playing cubs, a lot of playing subadults. We've also seen a lot of interactions, non-play interactions between family groups and other family groups and subadults. A lot of bears getting kind of pushed around, getting pushed into other groups of bears. It's been very exciting to watch, but also fairly challenging to manage people around these areas. You know, hundreds of people fly in every day to visit the falls, and they have to cross over the river to do so. So if there's a bear within 50 yards of the bridge, we'll keep the bridge closed as long as that bear is there. We will not move a bear out of an area that it's chosen to be in, as long as it's in kind of its natural habitat. We want to allow it to move naturally and act naturally. This is a very important food resource for the bears. We don't want to push them out of that area. With his adopted sibling, 719. 719 is the biological offspring of 435. So 719 is 3.5 years old. 503 is 4.5 years old. There's a really significant size difference. For one thing, 503 is a male, 719 is a female. But 503 is just really a large subadult. He's been, like I said before, very successful catching fish. Very successful knowing his place, taking as much opportunity as he can in the good fishing areas, and also giving more dominant bear. We've seen a 503 hanging out with 719 and other subadults quite a bit over the last month. And so we've just got like an absolute gang of subadults here, and 503 playing around with all of them, possibly kind of showing that he's the most dominant subadult here. He's certainly the biggest one. And subadults are really difficult to 503 legs, really very large for a subadult. He's got a darker coat, and his body sheds out longer as his head and neck does. So he kind of has almost a strange looking haircut. That's what it looks like. We've seen this subadult that he's playing with now quite a bit on the river. Not sure of the... But they sure are fun to watch. So I've kind of had my hands full guiding the camera around here, but I'm going to try to answer some questions. Again, if you're watching, feel free to enter in any questions you have. I'll see what I can do as far as answering them. I might not have all the answers, especially with all these subadults running around. IDing them is not super likely. So it's pretty common to subadults play like this, and you know, we can't be inside their heads to know exactly. Certainly it gives them the advantage of practicing their motor skills, practicing their strength. They're play fighting, so they're essentially practicing for a situation where they might have to fight off another bear. We've got a question here from ABC about any sign of 747 on the river. We haven't seen him in about a week. He showed up briefly on the lower river. We haven't seen him at the falls very often. We're not quite sure why. He could be fishing in other areas. He could have made an appearance and not been recognized. he could be out courting females. It's possible that he's found another food source that's either as good or better than the Brooks River. We get a really good look, a really intimate look at these wild animals' lives, but there's a lot that also happens off camera. There's a lot more time that we're not able to see. Kind of leaves a little bit of a mystery for us. Question here from Jacqueline. This is my second season in Katmai. Looks like it's your second season enjoying the cams as well. So, welcome back for another year. I've got a question about the gulls here. But the main species of gull that you're going to see here on the cams, black stripe on their tail feathers. It's actually on their wings, but that's a good way to differentiate the two. Mew gulls are also quite a bit smaller than glaucous winged gulls. We also have Bonaparte gulls. We don't see them quite as often. And those birds are here to take advantage of all the salmon just like the bears. Of course, the gulls can't catch them on their own, so they rely on the brown bear to catch salmon and leave scraps behind, often leaving pretty large scraps, sometimes whole fillets, right there on the bank for them to eat. So we've got some more bears coming up a little closer that we can get a view of. Again, this looks like another pair of subadults. This is really kind of a subadult summer. We've got a new blog post up on the Katmai Terrain blog you can check out if you want to learn a little bit more about what life for a subadult is like and how they can succeed here on the river. And we'll see if that bear comes back in view. In the meantime, we'll check out this lighter subadult. There's been a lot of questions about 273's emancipated cub, otherwise known as Velcro. You know, I'm probably not going to be able to ever identify him for sure. This bear that we're looking at here in front of us is just now out of view, but you know, I certainly won't be sure of any ID for 273's offspring, but the bear we were just looking at, you know, I'd love to hear what folks have to say. Sure looked like him to me, but again, subadult, super hard to identify, and I'm never going to give you a positive 100% sure answer on that bear in particular. But I would love to hear what you guys have to say. And these bears are just now out of view. So we'll check out what's going on over here on the spit and see if those other bears come back our way. So again, that's 503 hanging out with another unknown subadult. So it sounds like some other people think the bear that we were seeing just a moment ago was Velcro, 273's offspring. Again, it looked quite a bit like him to me. I don't have the most experience with that bear. I've only seen him for one season, so folks that have been watching for longer than that, I would probably trust their judgment more than my own, but certainly looked like him to me. But really, you know, I think regardless of the identification, you know, subadults are just so much fun to watch. To me, they're like the lightweight wrestlers or lightweight. They're also pretty unpredictable. You see them running around a lot. We've had them run around camp quite a bit. Crew of a crew of rangers in the resources division that it's their job to keep bears from coming into camp, where we have established kind of a human zone. We've got the lodge and the ranger station. We've kind of established that as a safe place for people to be. We want to try to encourage bears to not use that area and to only use all the areas around it. So that's the river, the lake, the forest, pretty much everywhere except for about maybe 200 square yards or so of developed area. And subadults, you know, they're trying to figure out how they can be successful on the river, and part of that is avoiding other more dominant bears. One of the ways for them to do that is to hang out in camp where there's lots of people, where other more dominant bears don't want to hang out. So just like every adult has their strategy for surviving, maybe their special fishing strategy, their favorite fishing location, it seems like every subadult has their own idea about how they're going to go about balancing the need to put on weight for the winter, to catch as many fish as they can, but also to avoid the more dominant bears that are taking up those ideal fishing spots. Maybe that's finding a good safe place to take a rest. Maybe that's finding a safe travel route in between the river and wherever else they want to go. Maybe off to feed on berries. Maybe to fish another creek or river with salmon in it. And as we're watching these bears hang out and play by the boats here in the vehicles, there's a question by Jill Brew. Do bears ever try to climb onto the boats? Indeed, they have before. We last year had a boat that received quite a bit of damage from a bear, and that's just kind of part of the deal here. We've got a setup where we've got a huge density of brown bears and a small population of people that live here over the summer. If we're going to be able to live here safely, there's certain things that we need to have with us, certain tools. And at some point in time, bears do investigate these things. We don't want to leave human play toys out for bears to get a hold of to any extent possible. But in order to live here safely, we do need to have some transportation. So we do have boats around, we do have vehicles around. And it's not very often that bears get into that stuff, damage it, but it does happen. We certainly don't punish the bears for doing that. They're just kind of exploring their surroundings, and we kind of have to deal with the consequences. But 99% of the time, we see bears doing just this. lot more concerned with their survival, whether that's fishing or hanging out with a buddy system, playing with each other, practicing for one of those really dangerous events where they have to fight off another bear or establish their dominance with another bear, maybe later on in life. More concerned with those activities than they are with the human activity around them. And that's pretty unique. The bears here in Brooks Camp, they've gotten pretty used to seeing even people, objects in predictable places. We always leave the boats in the same area, seeing people and human objects in predictable locations, and they're able to kind of realize that, okay, that poses no threat, there's no reward there, it's not going to help me by investigating that object or those people. So they're able to go about their daily lives and just kind of do their thing, and we're able to watch them. So we're not sure where 503 and that other subadult went, somewhere into the bushes there. Not to fear, there are plenty more bears to check out here on the lower river. So now, I spoke about this bear a little bit earlier. We've got 435, nicknamed Holly, and her two spring cubs. So one of those family groups that I talked about, hanging out on the lower river, taking advantage of this good fishing access this year. And probably was a factor in 503 and that other subadult taking off from the area. And just because raised by 435, it doesn't mean that he's going to get any special treatment. 435 is still going to treat him just like any other bear. She's going to drive him off, protect her current cubs, and protect her own self, because she's got to survive out here. She doesn't want to compete with any other bears, so she's going to drive off any bear that she can so that she gets the good fishing access, so she can put on the weight for wintertime and survive along with her cubs. Question here from Rockette, asking if I've met Elaine, another bear cam viewer I have. I met her last night during our play-by-play, or rather right afterwards. It's always great to see folks who've been watching the cams come out, see things in person, get a little bit of a different perspective. But one of the cool things about the bear cams, and we mentioned this last night, is that you get in some ways a lot more access to viewing the bears via the cams during nighttime hours and early morning hours when the viewing platforms are closed. Cams are still running, so a lot of times viewers are able to let me know about things that I wasn't able to see, or let other rangers know about certain events that have happened out of our view. So I think it's a really great partnership between Katmai and Explore.org that we've got set up here. Great for people to learn about bears, great for us to learn about bears, the rangers. And coming into view now, we've got another family group. Looks like 2 yearlings. With their mother. I'm not quite sure who this is yet. Just saw her come into view. See if we can get a better look and determine who it is. Those look some pretty small cubs if they are yearlings. So either really large spring cubs or pretty small yearling cubs. A spring cub is a cub that's... Those look some pretty small cubs if they are yearlings. So either really large spring cubs or pretty small yearling cubs. A spring cub is a cub that's been born over the winter this year, so a spring cub, it would be their... I'm really not recognizing this bear. I'm interested to see if anyone else... It looks like we're getting a pretty good view now. Interested to see if anyone else has any ideas who this is. It's really fun to watch bears on the lower river, but it can often make it a little bit more difficult to identify them. Showing the same behaviors that they might at the falls. Not using the fishing locations that we recognize. Sometimes not acting the same way, the same behaviors. Approaching that new family group is 435 with her 2 spring cubs. Usually spring cubs are a lot darker than yearlings. Sometimes they'll have a natal collar, a white ring around their neck. Necessarily always the case. Spring cubs do lighten up over the course of the first season. We can see this newer sow here popping out of we call Downriver Island. So just reading the comments here, a couple guesses that I've seen, 171, maybe 284. I'd probably buy a 171 before 284. I don't think this is bear 284. But both those bears are 2 that I really didn't get a whole lot of experience with last year. So I don't really feel like I have the expertise, the experience with them to make any definite claims. And that's another thing that's so cool about the bear cams is, we mentioned this last night too, that we kind of get to crowdsource on, and we get to borrow the knowledge that's been stored with the audience. We get to learn from each other. There's so much to learn about these bears. So someone like me, coming in fairly new to the bear experience here. Again, this is just my second year here on the bear cams. I've got a lot to learn about what bears we're seeing as well. Another thing that can make identifying these bears really difficult, they change a lot over the course of the season. For one thing, they get tremendously larger. They can put on hundreds of pounds over the course of just a few months. The color of their coat change drastically, generally darkens as they grow in their new winter coat and shed their old winter coat over the beginning and middle of the summer. With that new coat, it can cover up scars that you might have used to identify them. It can cover up wounds. And as their coat changes, you'll see different shed patterns, and those can change from year to year. They don't always shed the same ways. They do sometimes, but certainly it's not a definite thing to be able to look for. Stay tuned for more play-by-plays, more live chats coming up soon. You can look out for more frequency in the next remainder of the month here. So thanks again for joining me. We'll talk to you again soon.